What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. This week, I sit down with Michael Strasner. Michael's mission in life is to empower people to take committed action on their visions and dreams with a true sense of urgency. He believes in people and their ability to transform themselves into leaders, an example of what's possible. For the past 30 years, Michael's facilitated both personal and corporate seminars and workshops on topics ranging from relationships, communication, leadership, entrepreneurship, public speaking, team building, and among many others like leadership. His clients span the United States, Central America, and Europe, from Fortune 500 executives, presidents, CEOs, and mid-level managers to entrepreneurs, new parents, and college students. He's also authored 2 books, his most recent being Mastering Leadership. I truly enjoyed this conversation with Michael, and I think you guys are too. You know, leadership is such a hot topic right now. Everybody wants to be a leader, thinks they're a leader, but doesn't know how to be a leader. This is something that Michael has mastered over the last 30 years, and we do a deep dive on this. We also talk about following your passions, and what's right for you might not be right for somebody else. And what do you do if somebody laughs at your passions or says, hey, that's too weird of a goal or that's not right? How do you handle that? There's so many cool nuggets in this episode that you guys are going to take away. You're going to love it. Promise. Now, before we get to the interview, I wanted to let you guys know that we are currently taking applications for the first ever Growth Now Mastermind. It's going to be limited to 10 to 15 high-level entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their business, who are looking to grow their impact, and are looking to grow their relationships. So if that's something you're interested in, go to growthnowmastermind.com, fill out the application, and somebody will be in touch with you soon. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Michael Strasner. Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Justin. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the conversation. And, you know, our paths have never crossed until a couple of weeks ago, but I've heard about you through all the different things that I attend and have been through and some of my clients and so on and so forth. And Natalie, Jill ended up connecting us. And I just can't wait to dive into these topics because what you teach and what you've mastered through your life are tools that everybody needs, in my opinion. So I'm really excited. But why don't you just take a second and just tell my audience who you are today, and then we'll break down how you figured it out and got there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Justin. Well, let's see. So I call myself a leadership trainer and a leadership coach, and I do it both in the public and in the private sector. So public as in I do general public leadership trainings where people come from all different backgrounds and all different skill sets. And part of what I love about that is that it's really like a sense of the real world and what it's like to live in the real world. So you've got doctors and lawyers and business owners and accountants and all different kinds of people. And then I also do corporate training and I do corporate leadership training. And so what I'll do is I'll go into a into a corporation and I'll do a leadership training that either I design for them or we design in partnership together based on what their vision is or what their goals are and what they want to create. And so basically I call myself a leadership trainer and a leadership coach. And what I really am is a normal, typical person who has no more or less, I think, gifts or talent than anyone else. But what I've done with my life is I have really worked hard at being the best version of myself and interrupting rackets and behaviors and limiting conversations and images and fears and breaking through those things so they don't stop me and they don't hold me back from being a leader or making a difference in people's lives. And then the other thing that I'm really passionate about is creating leadership in other people. For example, one of my taglines is, I'm creating leaders, not followers. And I think that's a really powerful tagline in today's market and with all the branding. So
yeah, that's huge. And as somebody who, obviously I'm in this space and I pay attention and I see who's doing what, whether it be locally or nationally, you're somebody who has, you've popped up in so many different circles that I touch on. And so you're definitely somebody who's put yourself in the forefront. So what sets you apart in the leadership space compared to other people? Do you have a different approach?
I'm going to say that a couple of things. I think one thing that sets me apart is that I am very committed to living the work that I teach. In other words, I really am putting myself at risk where I'm breaking through things that are holding me back. So I walk the talk. And I know a lot of people out there have, let's say great tools or great, steps and how-tos and we'll talk about what it takes to be successful, but they're not necessarily living it in their own life. And I know for myself, one of the things that really is important to me is that I'm a high integrity person, and that the people that I love the most and the people I care about the most, my wife and my children, not just know that I love them and not just know that I care about them, but they feel it, they experience it, and I show up in their lives. So I'm very present in my life, so it's balanced. And I also think the other part of that is that I spend my life, my professional life, really focused on elevating other people, lifting other people up, whether you call it the wind beneath their wings or whether you call it coaching. I mean, I live and I'm very passionate about empowering other people to have their dreams. So I see myself as a tool. I see myself as a vehicle to be used to support other people in creating their vision, their business, their life, their relationships, what it is that matters to them. So I've spent very little time marketing myself. I'm actually incredibly uncomfortable marketing myself. It's like a stretch for me. So I do it, but it is not an easy thing for me to do because I spend all my professional life promoting other people, which I love to do and I'm passionate about. So it's a little weird, but it's also my breakthrough and I get to keep having it. So
yeah, it's interesting to hear all that because I'm pretty similar. So we just talked about my event that happened, and so many people were like, "You should do a keynote as well. Like you should be involved in that." And even though I was on stage and had little snippets here and there, I didn't actually give like a talk. And I was like, it's about them. Like it's about the people, also about the people in the audience. It's not about me. So it's like that uncomfortable balance. So how do you kind of figure that out? Because you do have to lead in your.
Well, that I've been really taking this on, I'm going to say in the last 9 months to a year, more than I have maybe ever in my life. And part of that was my most recent book, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, but my most recent book, and a conversation I had with a marketing, advertising, and social media person who said to me, "Hey, Michael, I know that you are a leader and a coach, and I know that you love and you're passionate about coaching other people to have their dreams and have their vision. And wouldn't it be great if more people were able to be impacted by your work and impacted by your coaching?" And, it's a silly question probably for the average person, but for me, it was like, yes. So what I'm hearing you say is that I need to start working on Instagram and my social media. And she said, yes. And I went, well, okay, what is Instagram? And I actually went to my Instagram account and I realized I am literally the worst self-promoter maybe in the history of business, and been successful anyway, which is really kind of funny. Yeah. But it made sense. It clicked for me. It was like, okay, so if I promote on Instagram or if I do more social media focus, if I take my message and get it out there, obviously, to more people. More people will get the book, more people will learn, more people will grow, more people will be impacted by my vision and my desire to have them win in their lives. So, I mean, I know it makes sense, but it was also like a wake-up call. So I've been focusing on that.
Yeah. And again, that's part of your journey, right? Like that's part of you saying like, I'm going through the stuff too. Like I'm learning as I'm going versus like, oh, I'm already perfect. And let me tell you how I did it. Like, I love that about how you kind of walk through and teach other people to kind of push their boundaries a little bit. Right. Cause you're like, hey, I had to do it here. I'm doing it now.
Yep.
And then I'm going to continue to do it. So you had mentioned your book, which is Mastering Leadership, which is phenomenal, but let's start here. What is leadership to you?
Leadership to me is moving into a role where I am stepping out of the norm and stepping out of the, let's call it what I call it, the drift, the current as it is, and stepping out, stepping up and declaring something that is powerful and valuable to everybody, not just yourself. Like a leader to me is someone who has a vision, who declares the vision, they commit to the vision, and then they own that vision. And that vision is a vision that impacts everyone. It's not a leader's not a leader for themselves. A leader's not a leader to commit to a personal goal. A leader is a person that has some kind of a purpose and vision in life that benefits every single person they come in contact with, whether it be on a big, small, or personal or professional level.
Yeah. And so when you started to discover this, like how did you even start? Like I look at people and like, okay, now you teach it, but where did you even begin this journey of discovering how to master leadership?
Okay, so when I was 21 years old, I'm 54 now, so 33 plus years ago, a friend of mine did a leadership training program in Los Angeles, and she invited me to go to her graduation, which is the completion night. And so I said, sure, she's my friend. And I went to this event. It was at a big hotel in Los Angeles, and I was completely blown away by how she was being. These are the key words, how she was being. This friend of mine, we were 21 years old, 20 at the time. I think she was a year younger. We used to go to parties and, there'd be music playing and I'd be right out in the middle of the dance floor getting everybody to come out. And my friend would not come out and dance. Okay. Yeah. Now, here's the scary part. She danced all the way through high school. I even think she got scholarship offers to dance. So This was not somebody who couldn't dance. This was somebody who had low self-confidence, which is also bizarre because she was gorgeous, like drop dead gorgeous. So I go to this graduation with her and I had never seen her with her hair out of her eyes or out of her face. So I'm standing in front of her and her hair is out of her face. And I'm like, whoa. What is happening? Yeah. So she, it's like a big exciting moment. Everybody opens their eyes. It's like a surprise to see who's there. And I'm standing in front of her and I give her this big hug and she gives me this big hug. Then this dance music is playing. And let me tell you what's going on. She's dragging me around the room dancing. Like I would always dance, but yeah. I was in such shock that this friend of mine who had, this low self-confidence, couldn't take a compliment, would always deflect, you're so beautiful. No, I'm not. Oh, you're so amazing. No, I'm not. All of a sudden she's dragging me around the room with confidence and introducing me to all of her friends. And she's like social and all this. And I'm like, holy crap, I get to go to this training. So I went to the training, not knowing what I was going to get out of it. And who knew I was going to create a career out of it. But this was 33 years ago, 21 years old, in school, studying communications, studying political science, thinking I want to maybe be a lawyer, thinking I maybe want to, run for office one day, blah, 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 be a leader. I went through this training and I'm like, okay, no, this is what I want to do. I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to impact people just like this trainer, this facilitator is doing for me and for all these people. So that's where it began, 21.
Yeah. What's crazy about you telling that story, and you said that was like 33 years ago, you can still feel your passion about that moment as to like, okay, here's my purpose. I want to help people do this. Now, to be a leader, do you think you need to discover your purpose first?
Yeah, I think so because I think you could be unconsciously competent. Like I think there's different levels of competency and there's different levels of consciousness.
Sure.
And this is something I actually coach in my trainings. And one of them is unconscious competent. Like I was definitely competent in certain ways before I did the training, but I wasn't aware of it. Like you couldn't say, you could ask me, hey, Michael, so what are you doing that makes you effective in this way? And I would have said, I have no clue. So I was clueless as to what it was, but I was definitely competent because I could like set my mind to certain things and be able to make it happen like no matter what. Like I had this dream to go on this senior trip in high school to go to Florida from Boston, for spring break. And none of my friends had any money. And so I enrolled them all in palm trees and beautiful girls and sun and beach and us. And what does all this have in common? And so I enrolled my buddies in the idea of this trip. Everybody got jobs. Everybody saved money. We drove down to Florida. We went to spring break and we had the time of our lives. So that was an example of I was unconsciously competent in my ability to make a difference in people's lives, have them see the value of something, and then go do it, act on it. Yeah. And so what I think happens is that you could be unconsciously competent, but you can also be incompetent. You could be dangerous with your leadership, where you're causing breakdowns in relationships, you're causing anarchy with your clients or with your business associates, you cause breakdowns in communication and just be unaware, which is really my experience of most people, is unconscious about how they come across or how they are with people. And so the more conscious you are about your vision, about your purpose, think of it as like your guiding fuel that fuels your actions. Why am I doing this? Simon Sinek calls it the why. There's lots of ways to talk about it, but I talk about it in terms of vision, where you're clear about the focus of your intention. You're clear about the impact you're committed to making, and then you're driven to make that impact.
Yeah, no, I love all that. And it's funny because when we hear the word, at least speaking for myself, when you hear the word leadership, you think of like our great leaders, right? The ones who change the world in a positive way, the ones with vision, the ones who know their why. But then you would also brought up there's bad leaders as well. There's people that like are either doing it for themselves or they're hurting people in the process. So how do we begin the process of fixing somebody who is a leader by definition, but they're doing it the wrong way? Like, how do we really begin to guide them in the right direction to be a much better leader? What's the first step?
Well, the first step towards any kind of change or any kind of breakthrough or growth, I think, for a leader would be awareness, is bringing to consciousness somehow through feedback or information to have that person realize what they're doing and how it's coming across and also how it's impacting other people. So I think that if people realized, and I'm not talking about, let's say all people, but most people, if they realize what they're doing or how they're doing it or the way that they're communicating or showing up and how it negatively impacts people, if they could see that pattern, see that path, they would absolutely choose to change it. Yeah. But most of the time, people don't see it, number one, on their own. And number two, they don't know who to ask, because most people out there, they're not qualified to coach. What they are is critics. The world is full of criticism, judgment. You're wrong, you're bad, this person's an ass, or they gossip. Like I might see something about somebody that I know who is in a leadership position that, let's say, doesn't work. And most people don't have the caring or the responsibility to go to that person and sit down and say, hey, I care enough about you to be honest, to let you know, here's what I'm seeing and here's what's going on. And I'm not saying this to hurt your feelings. I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this because I care about you. And I know that you want to be better, or I know that you want to make a positive impact. So this is my feedback to you. What most people do is they'll go to the water cooler and they'll chat with their friend, or they'll get on, some sort of a chat, and they'll say, so-and-so is so-and-so. Can you believe they did so-and-so? Yeah. And you should have seen what they said to me and how they did this the other day. And so we love to gossip, and we love to judge, and we love to be right, and we love to criticize. I call it being like an armchair quarterback, or, a self-righteous critic in the press box. It's so easy to sit up in the press box in life and pontificate about what leaders are doing. Well, how about you run? Why don't you run for office, or why don't you step out from behind the cooler and declare your supervisor responsibility at work, or declare your own business and get out there and make it happen? It's not an easy game. But I think also feedback is valuable, but also essential. Feedback is valuable and essential to be effective as a leader.
I love that. I love all of that. Now, you had mentioned earlier when we first started how, leaders create leaders, not followers. And that's such a powerful statement, because I think there's so many people who they get into a leadership role, or they feel like they're a leader, and they hold people back because they're afraid people are going to take their throne, so to say.
Yeah.
So why is there so much power in forming other leaders around you?
Well, I'm going to say that for me, there are vision-driven leaders, and then there are also ego-driven leaders. And an ego-driven leader has zero intention to create leadership in other people. An ego-driven leader wants to be adored, wants to, have their coffers be full. They want to make all the money. They don't want to share the secrets. They want to keep it to themselves. And in my experience, that's an unfulfilling way to live life. I mean, it's a lack of spiritual integrity. I'm not talking about in a religious sense, but it's a lack of spiritual integrity. When I think of children, for example, who are the happiest people in life? I think of children. A 3-year-old child, they wake up. Does a 3-year-old child know the value of money? Nope. I mean, you could give a 3-year-old a $100 bill, or you could give them a $1 bill. They have zero understanding of what either of those two things mean. But you know what 3-year-olds love to do is share. 3-year-olds want to play, and they want me to play with them, and they want you to play with them, and they want to play with their friends. And if you ask a 3-year-old, how many friends do you have? They're going to say, 1,000, because they don't even know what 1,000 means. Who's your best friend? Jimmy, Bobby, Billy, Timmy, Susie, Lynn, everybody is your best friend, because a 3-year-old has no limitations. They love to share, and they love to care, and they'll take their cookies and share them with you. And it's like the older we get, the more we develop our ego, the more it's about me and it's about mine. And it's this scarcity mentality that creates a lack of health, a lack of healthy relationships, a lack of a breakdown in trust and intimacy and respect. And the way I look at it is, if you're not enough having nothing, if you're not worthy enough having nothing, then you're never going to be worthy having everything, because it's outside of you. And whatever it is that's outside of you will never be enough to handle the inside experience or feelings or interpretations. And so my vision in life is to share what I have. I have gifts, and I'm not going to hoard my gifts, and I'm not going to be stingy with my gifts. I'm not going to be a miser. I'm generous with my gifts. I want everybody in the world to experience peace and abundance and leadership and transformation and infinite possibility, and wake up and jump out of bed like a 3-year-old and be excited about life. And how am I going to do that if I keep it all to myself?
Right. Yeah. So have you always been that way?
I'm going to go with no. No, of course not. I mean, I was when I was a child, but as I got older growing up in my family, I was influenced by my family like everybody is. I had an older brother. My older brother was the prince. He could do no wrong. He was always perfect. My mother would actually say, Michael, why can't you be more like Larry? Okay. And even if I wasn't compared to my brother by my mother, I was compared to him by me, because I'd look at Larry and he was pretty perfect. mean, it was like, those are big shoes to fill. He was a great athlete, so I had to be a great athlete. I wanted to compete with him in everything. And what it did was it really created for me a lot of low self-esteem and insecurity and judgment and comparison and, self-beat up, self-loathing. I was very insecure. And when I went to the training I was telling you about, I had these really great masks. We all have masks, and I had this mask and I would wear it. And here's what it would say. Everything is great. Michael, how are you? Great. How's everything? Great. How's your family? Great. Everything was great. Yeah. I mean, it's another way of saying fine, but that was my mask. What I was really saying is, I can't tell you how things really are because you don't care about me. Nobody cares about me. I've got to figure this out on my own. I'm not good enough. If I was vulnerable with you and I told you how I really felt about myself, or I really felt about my family, or I felt about my place in life, no one's going to like me. No one's going to invite me to the party. So I had to put on this front, this mask. And believe me, I got invited to all the parties. So, I mean, I was pretending to be fun, pretending to be cool, pretending to be hip. I was the first one to have an earring when I was 18. All my friends, I was the talk of the town. Anything to get attention, to somehow build up this image or this persona that I'm this cool person. Because inside, I felt worthless and not good enough and all that. But that leadership training when I was 21 completely flipped my interpretation of life. It's like I went to the training and everything changed. My whole perspective on life and the world around me. I realized that, I have met the enemy and it is I, and the only one that can transform my life is me. Yeah. And so I'm going to forgive and let go of what I made up, and I'm going to disembark, and I'm going to start fresh and create the life of my dreams. And that's where it began.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's absolutely so powerful. Everything you said there, a reflection of ourselves more than anything. Like, we worry so much about the outside and who's bothering me and what's wrong with the world instead of what's wrong with me and how can I just fix me. And I think that was a huge shift for me in my life when I stopped worrying about that and I stopped worrying about the judgment. And I would talk openly about my feelings and what I was going through. And then actually that's when everything started to happen, right? And you start to live in abundance. Let me share. And then all of a sudden the money happened and let me do that. And it's just so crazy. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true because I've lived that. Like that's happened. And
absolutely.
And I love all of that stuff. But what are some characteristics or traits of a leader do you think every leader should have? Is there a list of like every leader should have this?
Well, I don't know that there is a list of shoulds, but I think that there's for example, in my book, I talk about the 12 leadership distinctions that are mastery distinctions. And there could be 15, there could be 20, there could be 30, there could be 50, there could be a different 12. But the 12 that I came up with that I coach other people and I coach in my trainings for people to learn and grow and to incorporate into their lives are really powerful distinctions, and they're universal. And, for example, one of them is about all leaders have a powerful vision. Another one is about all leaders are committed to the vision, because you could have a powerful vision but not be committed to it. You could be wishy-washy about it. You could hold back. Another one of my distinctions is about risk-taking. All master leaders are risk takers, change masters. They're not attached to the one way to do something. They're willing to redesign and reinvent, and they understand that that's essential in life. And then another one is about character. How can a leader and a true master leader not have incredible and impeccable strength of character? That consistency and rigor in that they walk their talk, and they walk their talk. You could trust that person. That person is being authentic. Because you've seen it. And so there's a believability about them and an ease about them. And so, yeah, I think that there's definitely a set of distinctions that are essential and valuable. Another one that I would really say is that, to me, the most effective leaders are generous. not in scarcity. They're in generosity.
Yeah.
They share not only their gifts, but they celebrate the gifts of other people, and they celebrate the dreams of other people. They celebrate the things that matter to other people. I was sharing with you a little while ago. This is a perfect example of that, I think, about my fantasy car that I'm having built right now, my Corvette. So this was absolutely crazy. In the last month, I shared about my Corvette with, let's say, I don't know, probably 100 people. I'm going to say at least 50 of the people could not celebrate my fantasy car. It's like,
That's
these are friends of mine. So these are people I know, golf buddies, whatever. So it's like, I'll one in particular person I'll share about. So he's like, you're going to give up a German car because he knows I drive a BMW. You're going to give up a German car for a Chevrolet. And that was the first thing he said. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, if you called me up and you said to me, I don't care what it is, I've had this childhood fantasy dream that one day I'm going to have enough money to be able to, go on a safari to Africa. Even if I didn't like the wilderness or, the idea, I would celebrate it for you because I know that it's important to you and for you. And he couldn't do that. He just couldn't get past that. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, the selfishness, the lack of celebration, the lack of joy, the jealousy, like this petty jealousy that people have in their lives. So I think giving and generosity are essential in leadership.
How did you respond to that, him acting like that? Do you just kind of let it go?
Well, I would let it go. I would let it go if it was somebody, let's say, I didn't know or I didn't have permission. Because if I'm coaching somebody or I have a coaching relationship with that person, I absolutely would have taken that on as an opportunity. But because this person is a friend of mine, I absolutely interrupted the conversation. And I took him on, and I gave him the example I just gave to you. You called me up a couple of years ago to tell me about your safari. You're going on with your family, and did I criticize you when you told me you were going to spend, $100,000 to go see the Seattle Seahawks play in the Super Bowl? Did I say that's the biggest waste of money ever? No, I said that's awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing. I mean, this is maybe the one and only time the Seahawks will ever win the Super Bowl. And if you can afford it and if it works for you to do it, you should absolutely do it. To me, that's what a leader would do. So I had fun with him while I was simultaneously taking him on.
Yeah, no, hands down. I mean, and that's interesting because, I have people in my life that are both, one that completely celebrates and one that doesn't. And the one that doesn't, they slowly find their way out of my life if it continues.
Listen, one of the things I talk about in my first book called Living on the Skinny Branches, that's the name of my first book. One of the chapters is about clipping wings. So don't let other people clip your wings. When you're around people that are clipping your wings, always a wet blanket on your fire, passion, vision, joy, excitement in life, then what's that going to do to you? It's going to make you cynical and hardened, maybe make you question how much you believe in what you're talking about or how enrolled you are in it or how passionate you are in it. Nobody needs to be around people like that. I mean, we get to be around people that lift us up and people that inspire us. And, like all of my closest friends, like my real inner, let's call it squad or, whatever you want to call it, my real closest buddies, they're all trainers, master leaders, and coaches in this work, the work I do. And we challenge each other and we hold each other to our highest standards. We're vulnerable with each other. We cry with each other and we absolutely celebrate with each other.
Yeah, I love that. And so what does somebody need around them to be a leader? Can it be anybody? Because I think that's interesting. Like the whole question, like you have people to lead or are you a leader first? You know what I mean? Like, so can anybody be a leader?
I think anybody can be a leader, but I think leadership looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
So can a grandmother be a leader? Sure. A grandmother could write a book. A grandmother could teach a class. A grandmother could maybe volunteer at a school and be in contribution to kids that are in a class. In other words, the level of leadership could be different for each person, but I absolutely think that anybody could be a leader. An 18-year-old could be a leader by being a big brother or a big sister, or volunteering in a soup kitchen, or getting involved in a charity. So I think leadership is available to everybody, and I think the level of leadership could be determined by your vision, could be determined by your skills, could be determined by your mindset, or where you're at in your life. And so I think that is relative.
Yeah. So what's the first step for somebody to really start this journey of becoming a good leader, even to just themselves, to be able to say, hey, I'm living my best life? Because I think sometimes if we talk about like negative self-talk or positive self-talk, whichever direction, to me, that's leading yourself. Right. And so you talked a lot about that earlier. You talked about like, how are you talking to yourself? How do I actually feel about myself? Am I lying when I say out loud? What are some of the first steps people can take to really begin that journey?
I think the very first thing that I would do if I was committed to becoming a leader is I would sit down and I would get some blank paper and I would imagine my life at some point in the future, let's say 2 to 5 years in the future, because we don't want to go too far, because if it's too far, it might not have the oomph and the, let's say, the urgency or the believability that it's possible today. So I would do a 2 to 5 year vision for my life, where I would basically write out without editing what my life is like at that point. So 2 years, 3 years, 5, whatever, what my life is like as if I'm already there now. So I call it standing in the future. So I'd stand in the future, be in the future, and imagine what my life is like if it was exactly how I wanted it to be, not in the future, but now. And so I'm writing it from the present tense. So I'm transporting myself into the future, and I'm in that future, and I'm looking at, how am I living my life? What am I doing professionally? What am I doing personally? How am I being? What am I creating? What impact am I making in people's lives? What is the experience that I'm creating in my relationships? How do I feel about myself? And so I'm really enrolling myself in this future vision for my life as if it's happening right now. And then I would once I'm enrolled in it, then I would stop and simply bridge the gap between where I am right now and living my life that way. And then I would start creating commitments and declarations to move myself in that direction. And every day and every week and every month, create a set of benchmarks and let's call it wins, first downs, touchdowns, whatever you want to call it, benchmarks to measure my effectiveness in achieving it, to make sure I'm on track. And another thing I would do is enroll somebody else in being on my team about it. Hire a coach. You could go to a leadership training and have a coach there. You could read a book. You could have a friend, somebody that has the skills, somebody who knows you, somebody who's not going to buy your BS, because we all have friends that buy our BS. Those are the friends we hang out at happy hour, which, by the way, is a whole other story. Happy hour is not really happy hour. If you got a drink, it's not happy hour. So if you could find an accountability friend or coach or a training, then I would absolutely do that, because now you have somebody who isn't going to buy your BS, is going to hold you to what you said and make sure that you're on track with creating that life you say you want. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start to build momentum. Everybody wants to have a snowball of momentum. We all want the avalanche of momentum. We all want to be rich now. Okay, well, Lewis House wasn't rich day one. Lewis House, if you ever read about Lewis House and know about Lewis House's story, Lewis House was on his sister's couch, sleeping on his sister's couch. Now Lewis House gets, who knows, $50,000 a day, $100,000 a day to speak. Well, it didn't start on day one, but the vision did.
Right. Yeah.
And then it started bridging that gap with making those declarations and those commitments on a daily, weekly basis. Everybody makes New Year's resolutions, and then we wake up on, New Year's, and it's about 5 p.m, and they're like, yeah, maybe I'll start tomorrow. And now you know what you got? You don't have a new day. You have Groundhog Day.
Yeah. You're not kidding. And for the longest time in my younger life, that's how I was. It was like, oh, get excited. I'm going to get started. And then you, like you said, you reset to zero. So I've become huge on the concept of growing 1% every single day. And so if I can focus on 1% every single day, I mean, the compound effect of that growth is massive over time. Like people saw my event, over the weekend, that was a sold out event with phenomenal speakers and everybody was excited and impacted. And I actually know this is crazy to think about, but I know of people who quit their job to pursue their passion since Saturday, and it's only Tuesday right now.
Yeah.
Because of it. Right. But they see me on stage and they go, wow, he's done so many things. I'm like, yeah, but it's been consistent work for 3+ years on one goal, one vision, one dream. But it's just that 1%. And so it's so true. I mean, there's been so many good nuggets in this conversation. Like if people are listening to this and they're like, holy crap, like where do they go to get more? How can they work with you one-on-one? I know you have something coming up in September, I believe.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm launching with my partners. We are launching our leadership training academy in Boston. It's called Boston Breakthrough Academy. And we have an amazing website. It's www.bostonbreakthroughacademy.com. And my business partner, who will be running the day-to-day operations of the business, her name is Candace. And Candace is in Boston right now, and our business is set up and we're in process. And we've already got a number of people enrolled in the first training. And the very first training begins in mid-September on September 13th. And I'm very excited about that. I'm from Boston. That's my home. And it's been a vision and dream, going back to visions and leadership. It's been a vision and a dream to start a leadership training company in Boston. I've been working in leadership and in leadership training companies all over the world, not just in the United States. And I started and worked with amazing partners in San Diego at a company called ALA, Ascension Leadership Academy. And so if you're on the West Coast, you can go to ALA, and that's in San Diego. And my partners there, Jenna and Brad, are absolutely amazing. And so you can find that out on the internet as well. So the people on the West Coast, you can go to ALA, and the people on the East Coast, you can come over to Boston Breakthrough Academy and start your leadership process. I also have a website myself, Michael Strasner. So it's www.michaelstrasner.com. So you can find out about me more personally and about my book and my books. And if you want to buy my books, you can go on Amazon and do that as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll link all that stuff up, man. I mean, it's been incredible information. And the cool part about this podcast is I get to talk to so many successful people from different walks of life, however you want to define success. And so my question for you is, how do you define success, or what's your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
My definition of success is to follow your heart, follow my heart, follow my passion, and to be genuine and authentic in my expression of myself, and to walk the talk and be consistent in my life. And 3 things I do every day are create love and intimacy and joy with my wife and my children. No matter where I am, I'm committed every day to being in relationship and connected, because I'm not always physically home. Right. So it's a challenge, but I do whatever it takes, because love matters and relationships matter. And I don't get to be successful in my business while I'm dropping the ball on, my home life, because that would never work. Another thing is to exercise every day in some way. So every day I do it, and I don't always like it, but I do it anyway. And so that's an example of really walking the talk is exercise and being consistent with my health so that I have the energy. And then another thing I would say on a daily basis is to live my word. I always do what I say I'm going to do. I keep my word. So my confidence is high, my self-esteem is high, and my family and friends can trust me implicitly.
Awesome. I love all that stuff. So I wrap up all these episodes with 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun, some are serious. But before we get there, I ask you this. Answer within one word or at the most one sentence. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The first one is, what's your favorite smell?
Roses.
It's a great smell. If you could only say one word for the rest of your life, what would that word be?
Giving.
Love that. What is one trait in a friend that's non-negotiable for you?
Loyalty.
At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for one sentence, what would that sentence be?
Michael lived his life with passion and was generous with everyone.
And obviously this podcast is called the Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
When I realized that what I made up about myself wasn't a fact and that I could change my interpretation and create a whole new interpretation of who I am.
So powerful. Michael, thank you so much for not only just coming on and sharing with my audience, but for doing what you've been doing for the last 33 years. I mean, it's been clearly game-changing for so many powerful people in this world, and you're just going to continue to breed success wherever you go. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate it. Great podcast and great opportunity to connect with you like this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.